Hello, and welcome back to Dirty Boots Capital, where we get our boots dirty so you don't have to. Today, I want to share a story with you about small businesses, specifically why small and medium-sized enterprises are dying off, right? And not only why that's happening, but also why you should care about this phenomena, right? And I'll first start with 4 small businesses that I interact with on a regular basis, right? So one is my plumber, and my plumber number 1 and number 2 experiencing the same problems, right? My plumber and my HVAC contractor are both struggling with expanding their business, right? They're looking to grow their business to create something that will eventually, when they're 65 years old, they're sitting behind a desk, managing the operation and creating residuals for their retirement, right? But they're struggling, right? And, it comes down to labor, right? This labor problem that we're seeing in the United States today, where a lot of individuals have either received stimmy checks or have received, they're just on these different social programs, right? Receiving checks for different things. And so they don't have to go to work, right? So we have people who are sitting on the sidelines, not wanting to go back to work. So that's one of the problems impacting my plumber and HVAC. Also, trucks and material. Trucks in particular, if you've looked for a vehicle recently, I know for a fact, trucks have gone up almost 2 times what they used to cost for work trucks for contractors, right? And then materials. These contractors are struggling to get materials in. So they're not knowing how to price jobs. They're not knowing how to schedule jobs. It's just become so much harder for these contractors to survive. The third example here is actually my insurance agent. I just spoke with him yesterday on the phone, and great guy. Actually, it's a family-owned business. His father started it, and he's now running the show, running the insurance business, and he's struggling also with labor, finding the right quality of labor out there, and then having to compensate them more than what he traditionally has compensated his staff for, right? So he's having issues there. He's also struggling with insurance rates continue to rise. So we all know that the cost of construction has gone up, right? Lumber, windows, doors, roofing material, what have you, all that has gone up. And so what that's done for the insurance business, for the insurance rates, has, if there's ever an insurance claim, the cost to repair those items on the claim, the roof or the flood that occurred in the basement, right? Ripping up drywall, replacing studs, any of that stuff, that has all gotten more expensive. So insurance rates have gone up. And so my friend in the insurance business is struggling with, how does he compensate for those rate increases in line with his profit expectations, right? He has a well-established business with good customers, and he's trying to do right by those customers. So he's struggling with the whole profitability of the business these days. And then lastly is local restaurants, right? We all have seen local restaurants struggle over the last 2 years. And this local one to me is no different. They've actually closed their doors to being a restaurant. And now they're just an event center, right? They host weddings and business meetings, things like that. They're no longer doing restaurant services. And that's because they too are struggling with labor, finding waitresses and cooks for the kitchen and so on. But they're also struggling with what I refer to as food uncertainty, right? There is a growing problem with within the trucking industry, not having enough truckers to deliver product to businesses, right? So this isn't affecting your Walmarts or your Costco's or your Home Depots as much as they are small businesses, because the larger businesses tend to have enough inventory such that if they miss a truckload for a day or two, they can still support themselves. Whereas a small business, if a mom and pop restaurant doesn't get their produce delivery that day, what do they serve on their menu for their patrons, right? So it's become harder and harder for restaurants to plan their menus and just operate the business over food uncertainty, right? So I want to go a little more into why these small and medium-sized enterprises are having a hard time. So I spoke about the labor, and there's a study out that says 49% of small businesses are being impacted by labor shortages, right? 49% of them are being impacted. But it goes beyond the social programs and the stimmy checks that are keeping workers on the sidelines, right? It's also due to our aging workforce. Right now, we have a population where 12% of the population is 65 and older. And if you extrapolate that to 2030, right, just 8 years down the road, we're going to grow to a whopping 20% of our population is going to be 65 and older. So is that going to add workers to the workforce, or is it going to detract from the workforce? Chances are it's going to detract from the workforce and make things harder from a labor perspective for these small businesses. Inflation, we're all feeling it. 22% of small businesses accounted for inflation as being the number one issue they're wrestling with today, right? And it goes beyond the labor issues that they're having and having to pay higher wages. It's also the insurance costs that I mentioned and the rents. We all know that rents are going up on across the board, both for residential and commercial. So rents are going up. Trucks, like I mentioned, they cost 2 times what they used to cost, right? So inflation is a huge impact to them. But again, it goes beyond inflation. It goes to how do you price your goods and services so that you profit? These small businesses are struggling day to day with, what are my material costs going to be? Are they going to increase by 10%? What am I going to have to pay my staff to retain them? Am I going to have to give them a raise of 10%? These are all real questions they're wrestling with that they never signed up for when they started their small business. So it's becoming a real issue for them. And then also consumer habits, right? I think we all can relate to this one. We don't go out as much to dinners, to these restaurants. As much as I love to support our local economy, restaurants and small retailers, I too have cut back because inflation isn't affecting me, right? So what I do is I go out a little less to restaurants and I save a little bit of that money because I know when I go to the grocery store, my groceries are going to cost more, or when I put gas in my car, that's going to cost me more. So I'm cutting back on going back to restaurants. And then we all know Amazon is a behemoth in the business, right? We all use Amazon to buy products online, and that's really impacting local retailers. So consumer habits is a big part as to why these small businesses are having a hard time these days. All right, so on this flip chart, this is really the big picture message I want to get across, right? It's why you should care that small businesses are closing their doors, right? So business owners, again, they never signed up for some of these things when they started their business. So they're either going to retire or just go work for somebody else, right? So they're going to close their business. That relates to a smaller pool for us consumers. What used to be maybe 10 plumbers I could go to, maybe now there's only 4 or 5, right? So if there's a smaller pool for me to go to, what's going to happen to prices? Chances are they're going to go up. What does that mean for jobs? Well, chances are if there's less businesses, there's probably going to be less jobs, right? And if you look at it and say just 10% of these small businesses, just 10% of them go out of business, that equates to 6 million workers that are going to end up unemployed. And if you look at the unemployment rates today, it basically takes the unemployment from 4% today to 8% if those 6 million workers become unemployed, right? So 8% unemployment could be a reality here. What does that mean? Well, more social programs, right? The politicians are going to step in to backstop this and say, we want to help the American people. So they're going to offer more social programs, which means our taxes are going to continue to go up. Everything from our property taxes, gas taxes, income taxes, you name it. Somehow we need to pay for these social programs. And then in terms of getting money to the people, it just gives the Federal Reserve and the politicians more emphasis towards entering central bank digital currencies, right? So, and we all know with central bank digital currencies, we would say goodbye to our privacy, because now they can see everything we buy, how much of it we buy, and also earmark those digital currencies for certain goods and services, right? So they may say, we're going to give you so much digital currency to go buy an electric vehicle. Whereas if I want to buy a gas combustion truck or vehicle, I wouldn't be able to do that because my digital currency is earmarked specifically for electric vehicles. So that's one way the Federal Reserve and the politicians, through central bank digital currency, could sway how we spend our money. And then we're just going to continue to see the transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the rich and to the uber rich, right? So they're going to pile into in an ever increasing rate, right? We see this happening today, right? The rich are going to snap up all the natural resources, right? They're going to snap up all the land. We already see the mega rich buying as much farmland in this country as they can, right? And we also see what's happening with real estate today. So the wealthy is not going to be holding on to central bank digital currency. They're not going to be holding on to dollars. They're going to be holding on to assets. That's what they want. That's what retains its value over time. And so that transfer of wealth is just going to keep happening, if not accelerate, right? And so where does all this take us? Well, it takes us to a socialist state. And I think that's something that's scary to a lot of us, and something that none of us would want in this country, right? So this is why it's so important, why you should care what's happening with small and medium-sized businesses. And so I hope today I've given you some food for thought, and maybe help you think about in the future how you should go about protecting your personal and financial freedoms. Thank you.